Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in on this beautiful Wednesday at 4 o'clock. It's just past 4 o'clock. And I know some of you are doing the hustle and the bustling and getting your kids from school and getting supper ready, but it's okay. We're on YouTube. So if you're missing this broadcast, make sure you jump over to our Ontario Landlords Watch YouTube channel and check out this interview that I'm about to do today with our Ward 1 Cambridge councillor, Helen Shwery, and we have our Ward 6 councillor. Surprise, guys, it wasn't in the notes, but we have the Ward 6 councillor, Adam Cooper, coming on and just really diving deep into the discussion that we've had at council last night regarding a water billing policy motion that Helen and Councillor Mike Devin, Ward 2 councillor, had brought forward to council for consideration. Now, this policy, it's not landlords are off the hook right away, where that motion got passed 7-2. This is about directing staff to create a report, recommendations to council to bring back in July to see what it would look like for the city if they did reverse the policy that they implemented back in 2015 that made landlords responsible for their tenants' delinquent utility bills. So without further ado, we have to the right, we have Helen Shwery, we're Ward 1. Helen, thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure.
Now we have Adam Cooper. Thanks so much, bud. I know you're busy. You're answering the calls to the public. So I do want to thank you for taking the time, and we'll hopefully just run this for about a half an hour, if that's okay with you. Just diving into this policy, because you had definitely voiced your concerns at council last night. They were fantastic. I love that we had a number of delegates from the landlord side, and we had the Waterloo Regional Legal Clinic, I guess, advocating on the tenant side. But Helen, give me your first concept of, what you felt at council when you got to speak that motion and also have the delegates with their passion to this issue.
Well, after listening to everybody, the delegates, which, were actually speaking the truth, and then I found some of the people that were talking that were not delegates really had no idea what it is to be a landlord. And that was obvious, and it was disappointing because they also didn't read. I mean, I feel some of the councillors did not even read the history on why the motion was brought forth. And in a nutshell, it was to save the city from collecting, because they're having a hard time collecting from tenants. So they thought, let's put it on the landlords. It's easier. When I started to run, actually before, I'm a landlord in Kitchener, and I noticed it was brought to my attention that landlords are responsible for water. And I go, are you kidding me, for tenants? In Kitchener, if a tenant doesn't pay their water bill, it's shut off, but not in Cambridge. So I thought, well, that's not fair, because I know what landlords have to go through. So I said to myself, if I make it to council and I get voted in, that's one of the things I'm going to fight for the landlords.
Awesome. I'm so glad you're in. I had that first phone call. You're like, hey, I'm ready to bring a motion. She's like, I just want to know if I can have your support. And I'm like, you got it. And thank you, Helen, for bringing that. It's a very controversial thing that was back then. And I don't think anyone wanted to open up the can of worms. But as you heard last night of how it's impacting those landlords and how it's impacting the tenants, how could you not vote for such a policy that kept people housed versus their water bill being able to evict them at the landlord and tenant board? And then Adam, you were great. You had a lot of questions. You had a lot of statements to say. And what's your feel as the Ward 6 councillor to what you heard last night?
Well, I mean, overall, I was quite happy because, I mean, frankly, when it comes to the, we can all say whatever we want about this, but at the end of the day, obviously I wanted it to pass. It's, thank Councillor Shwery for bringing this up. At the end of the day, I mean, the motion that we have, which we were voting on last night, it passed by 7-2. So obviously there's the majority of councillors are on board with this. And I think it's the right thing to do. I made it clear last night that this is not a case of being pro-landlord or pro-tenant or anti-landlord or anti-tenant for me. this is about right or wrong. I just don't think that landlords should be on the hook for somebody's bill any more than they should be on the hook for their hydro or their internet bill. It's not right. And last night, we did hear some of the answers that were given as to why this was implemented in the first place. Because I was surprised. I stated last night this never should have come into play 9 years ago. And the reasons, unfortunately, were ones like Councillor Shwery stated, that they were having trouble collecting. They had staff, which was costing them, and it seems like they just wanted to save money by taking that cost and dumping it onto landlords. And that's not appropriate at all. Landlords are in the business of housing. They're not in the business of service supplies such as water or hydro or anything else for that matter. I mean, if we can dump this bill on them, why don't we start dumping hydro and internet bills and cell phone bills while we're at it?
Don't give them any ideas, Adam.
Yeah.
Come on.
I mean, at the end of the day, I just can't find any logical and fair reason to take for someone to sign up for a service and then to put someone else on the hook if that person defaults on it.
And that's exactly what it is.
It comes down to that. As simple a thing as that. It's about right or wrong. I mean, I know that if we do end up passing this in July, I believe it is. I know it's most likely going to cost the city. I mean, they will have to hire a couple more people. There'll be more things they have to do. But that's a cost of offering that service. It's a cost that should not be dumped onto anybody else, especially landlords who don't offer that service. And some people said last night, it's a cost of doing business, but that's not the business they're in.
No,
they're not in the business of water supply. So that's how that's where I am on this, and I'm glad it went and it seemed to go in the right direction. We had others that felt that way, and I hope they stay feeling that way.
And I'm glad that we mentioned that, because through my delegation speaking to council, it was to highlighting that a municipal policy such as what has been implemented in the city of Cambridge and other cities, because it spread like a wildfire when that change came into the Municipal Act, is that we're having this policy now impacting taxpayers at that provincial level. So at the Landlord and Tenant Board is now having to deal with the increase of applications for N5 applications because tenants are not paying their water bill. And the taxes are being paid to fund the Landlord and Tenant Board an additional $6.5 million. The Landlord and Tenant Board needs to be dealing with more pressing issues than being the collection agency for the city. So we see that we want justice. We see we want affordable housing, but you need to know that our small landlords are going to be that contributor. So knowing that it's impacting the taxpayers, even at that provincial level, we have to sit back and realize as a new council, is this the right decision, not only of impacting the province, but also how it's impacting these tenants that are in there. Helen.
Yes.
When you had to listen to the tenant delegate who, representing the tenant, and they were from the Waterloo Regional Legal Clinic, what was your thought on their delegation? Like, because they had a few concerns about not supporting this motion.
Yes. So I wish I would have asked her more questions. It's always hindsight's 2020, but I don't. Obviously, she's never been a landlord. I don't know. But it was just, I feel a lot of just words. She didn't quite even understand, I don't believe, what she was trying to support. Because the thing is, when we changed this in 2015, when it came to council, I read the report from BMA, which was a flawed report, which was surprising that others didn't pick up on that. They were suggesting that they're not going to collect deposits because guess what? Landlords can collect deposits from the tenants. And that's like false information. And if that's what the decision was based on back then, well, it's a faulty decision. And it's even interesting in the water and wastewater financial plan for the city of Cambridge for this year, they are saying that one of their principles is to ensure users pay for services they are provided because it leads to equitable outcomes and conservation. Well, how is that being like? It's hypocritical. Like, and then they bill the landlord. That makes no sense. So I'm not sure that she really did her homework. I don't know a lot about that organization, but I feel she kind of didn't understand what she was promoting. And I also would like to know how many mom and pop in Cambridge, specifically in Cambridge, were ones where the landlords was not fixing the leaks. As you know, as a landlord, the last thing we want is leaks to go. It causes so much damage to the property. Why would somebody not fix it? So I don't know if she really had good information.
Well, it's always about, we do have some, if they do not want to fix it quickly or whatever, there's obviously that path that tenants can take, filing the application of the T6 application at the Landlord and Tenant Board, calling property standards who come in and give you a grocery list and tell you to fix it in 14 days. And I wasn't able to get that opportunity at council to explain that if you need to buy more time to fix what they're telling you to fix. Now, if there was a situation that what they're telling them that the landlord has to fix, they need the tenant out. So you need to go through the board to get the tenant out to do the repairs before the tenant can come back in. There's a process that they have to go to the city. They have to pay $400 to have a hearing to tell them why they need to delay the fixing of the order and buy more time. So there's always that force that, hey, I don't want the city coming into doing it, but in order for me to buy more time, I got to pay $400 to the city in order to do so. So it comes down to, like, I see them grasping at straws here to make it look like the landlords are not fixing the leaky faucets. We do have smart meters now informing the owner and the account holder that there is a leak in their system. I got called to say that I've been using a lot of water, and I was like, are you sure? And I went home and there was a leaky toilet in my basement. So we have a lot more resources now for the city to be able to manage that water billing, that I hope that council will, or staff will come back to council with, showing that it is doable, especially when there's a surplus in the water account. Adam.
Can I just add one thing?
Yeah, of course.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. It's a casual conversation. This is just how we.
Yes, I'm a little passionate.
I'm not buzzing you. You got all the time.
Yeah, and then when they're saying that, it takes the city forever, to collect money, the city can shut the water off like they do in Kitchener. I've had tenants where the water was shut off. So for her to say that it's costing the city money, no, it's costing landlords a lot of money. And the other point I want to make, which Councillor Devine brought up, we've gone to smart meters. We have saved so much money as a city because we don't have people coming out reading, or staff reading the meters. All that's electronic. So the more of that, we've saved a ton of money. So I don't buy that argument from her or the other council members that didn't support this.
And it's true. I was listening closely to the delegation because she said that landlords have recourse to go to the Landlord and Tenant Board to get an order. And I just wanted her to say eviction order, because when you say, oh, they can go get an order, it's like, here's a piece of paper, pay the bill. No, the tenants are getting evicted. I would hope that we would see right across the board of the support. So it's very shocking, but also very surprising to see how it transpired so quickly after all these years of it being implemented. Now, Adam, I know that we're going to wait for staff and whatnot to see what it looks like to put tenants back on the responsibility train of making sure that they are, paying for what they use of the product that the city sells them. What would that look like? Is there a certain thing that should be changing if we're making the tenants responsible for their own usage again? How do you see this kind of coming back to council in July?
Well, that's why we have staff. They're going to come back with that report. Obviously, I've never operated that system. I've never facilitated it. I've just paid my bills. But the thing is this is not an unknown to them. They've done this before for a long time. They simply stopped. So I imagine they're going to come back, and as with any other issue that they report on, I'm sure there will probably be options. There'll be some things that people like, some things that people don't like. I'm expecting it's going to cost us most likely. I mean, this was done for financial purposes in the first place. So if we're turning it back to the way it was, then it's it's going to cost us a little more. But again, this is not the fact it's going to cost us a little more. To me, is not justification for continuing to do something that's clearly unfair. If we have a few more accounts that are default, then that so be it. I mean, that'll be up to the service provider, which is the city, to figure out how to collect that. It's
Now,
not the landlords. I mean, they're not to be used as collections for the city for this or for anything else.
do you see a possibility of them making hydro take it back again as well? Like, do you think that could be an option for them to handle it, to build, two birds with one stone, being able to make sure that the billing and the collections side of things, where obviously we heard from council last night with, denying service for a hookup, if there is an outstanding debt to tenants, which if they don't pay it, they obviously got to go into a rental unit that's all inclusive.
Well, I mean, I've never experienced it here when that was the case. I know it was the case where they merged the bills. Again, when they do the report, if that's an option that's going to make things easier for the city to facilitate it, and it's easier for everybody else that's paying, then maybe it'll be an option. But I can't speak to what options they're going to bring us. I just hope they're good ones.
I hope to meet with some of the staff before they create this report to give them a deeper understanding of what it's the life of a landlord, and what's in our control and what's not, and give them some out of the box thinking ideas. And I think that's where the public can still be vocal on, this topic right up until July. So making sure that you're informing people of what's happening, because people are watching. I got a message from LinkedIn to a councillor in another municipality, and he was watching the delegations and said that, we made some excellent points, and he's hoping that council actually was listening to us. So this is where other cities are also watching and knowing how this policy has had its impact in the last 9 years on people. And I'm proud to have you guys as council. Like, I'm like your biggest cheerleaders now, like no problem. So I'll make sure I post people a page to their Facebook page, because we're all about social media, so that you can follow them and find out what else these fantastic councilors are up to. And we have the other councilors that I'm hoping to put an invitation out to as well, to have them on to have a nice discussion about what it's like to be here in Cambridge and who they are. I think you guys are very hidden. We only hear from councilors at times. Sometimes it's elections time. So
we're happy to talk anytime. I mean, to your point, you mentioned about other municipalities grabbing onto this. I hope to do that. Mm-hmm. Because this is something that anywhere that's doing this, it's I said I don't believe it's right. It's about what's fair and just.
Yeah.
And the idea that, I mean, when I hear these arguments about, we heard last night about using this to force landlords to, or they might not do their maintenance in time. I mean, even if that were the case, then there are avenues that they can go down to sort that out, to deal with a bad landlord. But it's not our position as the city to start just generalize and punish every landlord out there, no matter what, by using them as this community kitty to just dip into and use their money to make up for what other people are doing. And no other group of business people would be asked to do that. It's so I'm hoping other municipalities pick up on this and do what's right. And again, need to emphasize, this is not about being pro-tenant, anti-tenant, or pro-landlord, anti-landlord. It's just doing what's just and right.
Well said. And that's that key concept to knowing that, if we have the protocols that landlords can do and what tenants can do, but if we can alleviate the board on these water billing hearings, that will leave spots available for hearings for these tenants to have access to the justice. If they do have a distant landlord, they now have the opening to have their cases heard a lot quicker, right? So it's all a chain reaction. And I know that our last council, there's many of them who thought, yes, we don't want this to happen. And the other ones looked at, hey, we need money. We just took over something that we were not expecting, and we need the money. But our housing crisis has changed drastically. And if you can save one landlord by switching a small policy, that's a tool that the councilors have in their tool bag to use in order to keep people housed and to encourage more investors from outside of Cambridge to want to come to Cambridge. Because I know we have landlords in our group all over Ontario, and they look at policies from rent eviction bylaws to landlord licensing, the short-term rental bans. Like they scout out where they want to invest. So let's change that philosophy in Cambridge, where you are open and we do need housing. So let's work with these business owners, because that's what we are. We're business owners. And I don't know who said it, Helen, that I think it was Mayor Jan Leggett. She said that we're businesses and we should support our businesses in our community. And that's what we are. And it's sad that we're always looking like the big landlords and the small landlords, but we are in it together. And I hope that each and every municipalities gets to see the footage on the Cambridge, City of Cambridge YouTube page, so they can see this type of discussion that had happened, so that they can make the necessary changes to reverse their decision to balance out the fairness and across the board.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I mean, we're constantly talking and hearing from more councillors, rightfully so, about how we need to encourage housing, because we all know about the housing crisis, but I mean, a huge part of it is the rental crisis, and we're constantly talking about bringing in the developers, attracting them in, and a lot of it is for condos and homes. But I mean, when people are really suffering, they're looking for a place. I mean, generally they're looking for a rental. Mm-hmm. And what we need is, so we get a lot of councillors that maybe push about how we got to attract them here, and then occasionally we get the same ones that want to do something like want to continue something like this that deters the mom and pop rentals, the ones that are nice enough to offer these services. They're not opening their place up as Airbnb or VRBO. They're still willing to actually house somebody. And I think we need to encourage them. And it's as it's a tough industry to be in, and you live in fear all the time of getting a bad tenant. Someone's going to screw you over. And when you have a situation like this, where it's just the situation is set up that if anyone suffers through someone's delinquency in bills, it's you. Mm-hmm. And that shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen. It's not fair. No one that like I said, I fear repeating myself. Utilities, the water is the same as anyone else. But the end user that signs up for it is the one that should be responsible. And this should pass in July, and we should see the end of it. And I hope the only way we hear more about it is from other municipalities picking it up.
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
I was going to echo what Adam said. And yes, the landscape has changed than it was back even in 2015. And I think people need to recognize that, especially those that are opposed. We are trying to bring in more developers to bring in rental, because today a lot of people can't afford homes. Mm-hmm. I have family members that would love to buy a house, but it's completely out of their reach. So they have to go into the rental market. And for us to encourage developers to build rentals, well, we have to also not ding them with, they have enough on their plate, and they're also already considered the bad person. One councillor said, well, we don't support business. Yeah, the city does need to support small business, and landlords, most of them are small business. Mm-hmm. So just adding more financial pressure on them is unfair. But when you said talk to, the staff, I think we need a lot more education, because clearly last night the comments I heard from those opposed were, I feel they're just not educated enough in the landlord business. Mm-hmm. And even you going in to speak to staff would be great. You had some really good points last night, but as you were rushing to speak, I'm sure a lot of it was missed. So
don't worry, I'm sending that. I have it typed up, ready to go, so everyone's going to get a copy of what I was rushing through.
And just, I think we need a lot of education, because I feel the reason was passed probably last time. There wasn't enough education. And like I said, the BMA report was faulty. So when you get stuff like that and you base decisions on something that's not completely accurate, that's not good. So I think we have a job to do, is to do a bunch of education.
And you know what? Back then, I never even had the education myself. Back in 2010, that water billing petition that was being pushed around came back with notes saying, can you help us fight the Residential Intensive Act and the Landlord and Tenant Board? So then I started getting to very familiar that, okay, well, one, they didn't have any option for landlords to deal with utilities at that time at the Landlord and Tenant Board. And they made changes at the board to allow an N5 application to include water bills. So that was the change that I think a council really needed to hear last night, just how it's impacting all of them, and also the fact of, you know, how it's impacting the provincial government and what it's doing to that backlog that they have. So we're all connected no matter which way it is. And it's not just about the developers that can come in and build those big properties to get lots and lots of people. We need to do that infill and create an environment where you have people that are not scared to open up their secondary suite and put the renovations in to that, and allow them to do some sub-metering. You know, that way they're not going to a third party looking for a sub-metering. The city can allow this, have it more easy accessible for them to do it. But you just got to get the right people at the table and have the right discussion. And I honestly would love to see our city council be able to advocate at that provincial level and say, the mismanagement at the provincial level, it's having its effect on the Cambridge residents. And if you can be a part of any discussion that they're having regarding housing, you know, you would like to be a part of that. And I think that's there's always been a disconnect between all levels of government. Everyone's doing something, but unfortunately there's too many cooks in the kitchen and everything is getting burnt.
Yeah. And, you know, the mayor did bring a good point last night that even though she didn't vote for this, I don't think the other councillors that did vote for this motion back in 2015 understood the terrible ripple effect it ended up having. They never foresaw, because none of us would have, what today would look like.
Well, definitely have a shout out to the other counselors from Mike Devine, Corey Kipson. We had Nicholas Armetta, Sherry Roberts, of course, you, Helen, and Adam. Like, you guys are fantastic. I love that you have this common sense approach by voting on this motion last night. And again, it wasn't to take landlords off the hook. It was to look at options. And that shows what type of open mindset you have to listen to the people of Cambridge. And if you are anywhere in these wards, guys, like, really get to know your counselors in all of your cities, because this is where we can make a difference. And I'm proud that I was able to stand before council with the group of landlords that showed up to speak, because without their support, I'd probably be rolling over and going to Florida and Costa Rica and Portugal too.
Thank you, with you.
Now, before we end this segment, I don't want to keep these busy counselors. Adam, what advice or what your last statement you want to say to our landlord community?
I think I pretty much said everything I needed to say last night and during this. You know, we're
July. How about that?
Yeah, come out in July. You know, if you feel strongly about this, come out and just do the same thing again. Offer your support, and we'll hopefully do what's right and sort this out for you.
Thank you, Adam. And Helen.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Adam said as well, and just encourage the landlords to write to your counselors, like you said, get to know them, educate them, the ones that didn't support, the ones that are looking for information, educate them as well. And Kayla, we're just looking to you to educate the staff, and anything that I could do, I'm sure Adam can do to help. We're here.
Thank you so much for coming on and being a part of this and being a face to that municipal council that, you know, we're doing some education to letting people know how things are changing and what level government is doing it, because some people are getting very confused to know which level does what. So if I can help facilitate that and educate in any possible way that I can, that's what I've been loving to do, and trying to create that balance and that connection to make sure that we are connecting the right people together. So I want to thank you all. With more on to go, we have a housing summit coming up in May where we're going to talk about affordable housing with some amazing guest speakers. So I hope that you guys can show up to that. It's a free admission. permission to come to this event. We're going to be speaking at the Kingston Landlords Association in the month of May as well. So lots of different things that we want to do to keep advocating for this fair and balanced housing system for good landlords, good tenants, and taxpayers. Thank you for joining me. If you're watching it live or if you're watching it later on, please give a comment. Make sure you like and subscribe to the Ontario Landlords Watch page. And of course, please like and subscribe to the City of Cambridge Council page. Thank you, everyone. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Take care.
Thank you, Kayla. Thanks.